Reports from Indonesia were more startling than we expected. PT3 series. I remembered when I first passed through Ushuaia. It's a decently populated port town at the tip of the Tierra del Fuego in Argentina. It's a jumble of colorful houses and shipping containers surrounded by these massive snow-capped mountains. On a typical day, it's crowded with ships and tourists as it's the primary hub for Antarctic tourism, as the continent is only 48 hours away by boat. However, as we pulled into the Beagle Channel, which normally bustles with boat traffic, we noticed something was wrong. No boats, not a single one. In fact, as we pulled into port, not a single boat remained at the piers. I stood at the deck of the G-Palm along with everybody else, 5, including the captain. Carlos Rivera, an astronomy postdoc from Princeton University, was the first to say it. Where is everybody? Even as we began to disembark, we could sense the eerie quiet of the entire town. No cars, no people, not even a stray dog. We began to disembark slowly with unease. Alguien está aquí. Rivera cupped his hands and yelled. Alguien. His voice echoes through the still streets. With no response, we decided to walk around the town. We passed an empty park with a sign with the town's motto, Ushuaia, Fin del Mundo, Principio de Todo, Ushuaia, End of the World, Beginning of Everything. However, Ushuaia and Principio de Todo had been crossed out hurriedly in spray paint. We began to walk uphill towards the mountains. We began to notice things, like how some cars were parked haphazardly in the middle of the road with their doors open like it was abandoned in a hurry. Doors were broken or unlocked. There was a crashed ambulance that hit a fire hydrant, which apparently has since stopped flowing. Grocery stores were near empty with shelves tipped over like dominoes. There was a police barricade with abandoned police cars that looked like they were trying to keep something out. What was more surprising, though, was the clothes that were scattered everywhere. Winter jackets, pants, shirts, dressed, all thrown on the ground as if the townsfolk all decided to rapidly undress. Did the rapture happen or something? Muttered someone in the group. Nobody responded. We then came across a white building with words hurriedly painted in faded red spray paint. It looked recent, yet faded and crusting from the exposure. Yo, Rivera, what does this say? Rivera came by and squinted. The handwriting was messy and almost indecipherable as if written in a rush, or a panic. Circa, O Dios de ti, closer, God to you, like, nearer, God to thee, like the Titanic. Someone in the group muttered after a pause. The group fell silent. After an uneasy few seconds, Diego quickly added, come on guys, it's just graffiti. It doesn't have to mean something bad. His voice trailed off. I brushed my hand against the graffiti and noticed how the letters began to flake off in my hand. A familiar, coppery smell. What's wrong, Lisa? My hands were shaking, and not just from the cold. I heard a metallic clank and realized I stepped on something. A blood-crusted knife, still moist. I think ... it's blood. I then looked down the street and my breath stopped cold. We looked around. It was everywhere. Circa, O Dios de ti, painted across almost every house on the block in blood. Then, beyond the barricade, there was a white wooden church. Its steeple collapsed, evidently from fire damage. That wasn't what caught our eye, however. In big bold letters in the same crimson hue as the graffiti was a big arrow pointing up and to the side along with the scribbled letters in English. GODISNOWHERE. God ... is nowhere. Someone read. Where did he go, then? Scoffed Rivera, who is known to be openly atheist. No, it doesn't say that, I realized. I pointed to the space between the W and the H. I think it says, God is now here. The arrows pointed to the mountain peak. There, barely visible to us, appeared to be something scattered on the snow of the mountain. I took out my camera and began to zoom in on the summit. There seemed to be thousands of tiny dots of various colors, brown pinkish, all gathered around the top. I squinted and zoomed in. Then I realized. The details were blurry, but I could make out human shapes with large, orange masses protruding from all over their bodies. They're people. Guys, I think I know where everybody went, I faltered, trying to think about how to break the news. The barricades aren't to keep something out, guys. It was meant to keep something in. You're going to want to hear this. I pulled out the emails on the phone and began to read out loud everything that Dr. Kleinhardt had told me. The last email from Dr. Kleinhardt had also finished downloading, so I read that out loud as well. Subject: Goodbye. It has started. Stay. Lisa. I am typing this as I stand atop the Transamerica Pyramid in San Francisco. It's begun. The spread. Jakarta fell the week after I left, then Kuala Lumpur, then Hong Kong, and then Chennai. In 3 days, it had reached London and Doha. Despite travel restrictions, we heard reports that it had arrived in Mexico City yesterday. Have you seen the news reports, Lisa? The videos of the bodies of those construction workers from Hong Kong on top of that skyscraper site. The bodies that crowd the minarets in Cairo. The photos of the Champs de Mars deserted, except for the Eiffel Tower completely filled with the fruiting corpses of the infected climbers. Everywhere, panic, followed by chaos, followed by silence. Entire cities and their inhabitants have turned to dust. This is the balance of nature, Lisa. The same reason why almost every known insect has their own distinct species of parasitic cordyceps. When a population gets too big, too destructive, nature has its way of thinning the herd. We plundered and polluted land and sea for greed. We destroyed millions of acres of wetlands, reefs, and rainforests. By doing so, we are meeting with things that were always meant to be apart from humans. We're not masters of the earth. We're guests living on borrowed time. We disrupted an equilibrium, Lisa, and with every action comes an equally devastating reaction. Is it any wonder that these pandemics keep appearing every other decade until eventually nature decides that we're no longer worth keeping around? I tried, Lisa, to warn them, but they just did not want to listen. Billions of men, women, and children are gone because I have failed. Lisa, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Do you remember when I helped you edit your dissertation? Lisa, how we discussed how humans and mycelium have a common ancestor, how our genomes are nearly the same. The beauty of fungi is that they can connect in a way that human minds never could. This is goodbye, Lisa. I can feel it inside. I'm going home. The email ended there. There was 10, maybe 15 minutes of silence. The wind howled and the waves crashed in the distance. After a while, the questions came. So, it's a fungus, like a mushroom, yes, but it infects people ... and what? Kills them. If it works like Cordyceps militaris, the species that infects ants, I think it works like this, but I'm not sure. The fungus takes over the central nervous system and forces the victim to have convulsions. It grows in the body until the victim is more mycelium than human. Eventually, I think the fungus hijacks the motor neurons and compels the victim to go somewhere high up. That's why they climb trees, towers, mountains. People, driven by the neurotoxins flooding their systems, begin to strip their clothes off so that the fungus has a better chance of distributing spores when the ascocarps, the fruiting bodies, I faltered, feeling nauseous, mature out of the host's body. Based on Dr. Kleinhardt, Greg's reports, this strain of cordyceps is especially airborne and contagious. And the cordyceps has a reproduction cycle, unlike any fungi we've ever seen. So it's all over the world, then, it seems like, Carlos dismally said. Yeah, that's why we haven't been getting any signals from the outside. No resupply ships, no nothing. This is it, guys. We need to find all the supplies we can get. I don't think there's going to be another place to restock. We decided to split 2 ways. Carlos and the captain would go back to the harbor to prepare the ship. The rest of us 3 would go to the pier and find the necessary supplies to bring back to the research station. As we began to haul bags of rice and medicine back to the piers, I heard a strange hissing sound, like a whistle in the wind. Then it got louder. I turned around. It was coming from the mountains. From the peak, there was a haze, almost imperceptible at first, but we could see it coming rapidly as it began to cover the sky. Within 20 seconds, the sky turned a sickly orange color. I shuddered when I realized what it was. I dropped what I was carrying. We need to leave. Now, when we left the port of Ushuaia, we realized truly how alone we were. A small vessel in the vast and turbulent ocean of the unknown. Yet, when we looked back, there it still is, the orange sky, advancing mile by mile closer towards us.